We figured out that social nudges was one feature that could help us drive transactions. OTT platforms work on a subscription video on demand. And our business model is transactional video on demand, where you don't have to pay for the entire subscription, you pay per movie. Indian consumers are very value for money consumers. Until you achieve a product market fit, don't scale. The most unconventional way to get user insights is to just, we have power users who transact more than 8 times in a year. And then we have non-power users across cohorts who only transact 2 times in a year. Our objective is to get these users who are not power users to enable them to become power users. And what we have learned.
Welcome, everyone. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Twisha, a highly experienced product manager with diverse background in various industries, including edtech, HR tech, e-commerce, and B2B. Wow, that's a huge list. She's passionate about building impactful products, exploring new ideas, and finding innovative solutions to complex challenges. And I feel like I connect with her personally because I love very similar things. Currently, she actually leads product teams at Book My Show, driving growth and user engagement. And prior to this, actually, Twisha was on her own entrepreneurial journey where she founded Learnify, an edtech startup focused on equipping students with essential 21st century skills. So get ready, as in today's episode, we're going to be covering what is Book My Show's revenue monetization strategies, what is it that actually matters in terms of their users, what are the key principles that we follow, and then we're also going to talk about Twisha's experience with the various startups and what are some of the cool frameworks that they use at BookMyShow's. So tune in and subscribe and follow us for more. Twisha, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here. Can you explain a bit about your role as a group product manager at BookMyShow?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Diksha. So, as a group product manager, I look at multiple product lines at Book My Show, which include movies, TVOD, which is a transactional video on demand platform. I also lead payments and offers, engagement and retention, and loyalty as platform pods. I manage a team of PMs across these pods, and I drive impact in each of these areas.
If you had to give advice to a 25 or a 20-year-old, what are the three things that one needs to do to become a PM?
The top three things on my mind would be one, customer obsession. I think you need to understand what users want and not just go by hearsays and assumptions. Second, you need to look at data to understand the behavioral and the transactional patterns of users. And third, I would say, is curiosity. You need to know how to navigate the unknown and be curious in general about why certain things are working the way they are.
And what is the one career hack that you have
I've
used?
been fortunate enough to have the right mentors at the right place, and I think those folks have helped me be where I am. They are in the form of my colleagues, managers, other friends from my college or other organizations. So I think that network kind of helps you decide the right companies, the right opportunities, the right problems to solve.
And what is the typical day at work?
The first thing that we do is look at data, what has moved, what has not moved, any hypotheses or reasoning for those. Second is look at users' voice of share, basically through different researches that we do, dog fooding or user research or market research or surveys, interviews, etc. The third, because I'm on a leadership role, I also kind of look at what my team is working on and ensuring that they're prioritizing the right set of problems and getting us the impact that we want in each of the areas that they own.
Trisha, it's very interesting when I'm seeing your career journey. You've actually done engineering. Did you know you wanted to be a product manager always? You've done your own startup. How did you land up being group PM at Book?
Obviously, I didn't know that I want to be a PM. I think back in 2009, when I actually gave IIT JEE, I don't think product management as a career was that much
Existing.
existent. So I never knew that, but I knew that I wanted to be in tech and I wanted to solve the right problems, build the right products. And that's why I actually took up an engineering course, right? But over time, I realized product management is what helps you talk to diverse teams, understand their requirements, build the right products, and deliver impact, which is how I landed up in a product management role.
Fantastic. We're going to talk about Book My Show today. Everyone knows the Book My Show app. It's actually the one-stop entertainment hub, whether you want to book movies, whether you want to book a music concert, or just go watch a stand-up show. What are the values and principles that are very important to the product identity?
So I think three key principles that we have. One is customer obsession. You need to know what your customer wants. The second is data driven, because we have such a huge user base, we have the right data to kind of look at and make decisions. We are fortunate enough in that scenario. So we look at data backwards decision making a lot. And third is execution. I think a lot of emphasis is on solving the right problems with the right speed, right? We just put our heads down and build the right product instead of getting bogged down by distractions otherwise.
So, if you have to summarize, the top three would be data, speed, and custom.
Yes.
Okay, great. Love these principles. Book My Show's sales revenue has neared 1,000 crore in FY23. And can you share some specific strategies that you have implemented at Book My Show to drive revenue growth?
So we've implemented a couple of different measures to kind of drive revenue. One of them was social nudges. Essentially, we used to show how many users have transacted in a set duration previously on the movie booking pages, and that has helped us improve user transactions.
So, tell me something, Twisha. I've heard social nudges. This is the second time I'm hearing this. How did your team actually go about determining which is the social nudge that you want to use and why this particular feature?
There were multiple competing features apart from social nudges that we could do to drive user transactions, right? But we followed a RISE framework where we looked at the potential impact, reach, confidence, and effort of each of these solutions. And we figured out that social nudges was one feature that could help us drive transactions because at the end of the day, the Indian users are very influenceable, and the way they decide what to watch is what their friends are watching, right? So if you've ever went out for a movie, it generally looks like, hey, I saw this new movie which is out there, why don't you come in? That's how people decide what to watch. So we wanted to bring that to a platform level because we have much more information about who is watching what kind of movie than you have, which is very specific to the set of 10, 15 friends that you have, right? So that was the motivation behind building it because we watching is still a social experience. Second, a part of your question, which was around why this specific social nudge, right? So we actually had a couple of other alternatives as well, right? For example, we could just show that this movie is trending, why don't you go ahead and book it? Or we show how many users are actually viewing that movie instead of who have actually transacted for that movie. And at Book My Show, we have a very strong culture of experimentation because we might have our own hypotheses, but it's the users who decide what's actually working for them. So we've launched a couple of experiments before the final version that is currently rolled out, which shows number of users who have transacted for the movie in a set duration. But again, like I said, the experimentation frameworks helped us decide that this was the winner and this is what got rolled out to all users.
So, you mentioned experiments. How do you go about setting up these experiments, and are there any platforms that you use?
So currently we use something called Google Firebase, which is essentially a Google platform which helps you recruit the right audience at the right triggers. It helps you define your success criteria. Basically, how will you determine whether this experiment has succeeded or not? Generally, we define it at the start of that experiment because there are chances of biases flowing in if you do not determine your success criteria right up front and you wait for data to kind of define it at the end. It also gives us a probability. What's the probability of the success that you are looking at? So we use these three to kind of run the right experiments to the right audience.
You also, in your introduction, mentioned that you look after offers and loyalty program. Today, every time I'm using a social platform, I feel like it's getting a bit more creepy and intrusive. So, how do you actually create a balance when you showcase personalized offers to your consumers?
We actually only show relevant offers to users who've actually decided to give us that data for us to personalize offers for them. A user still has the option to not be a logged in user and can come and transact on Book My Show. But for logged in users who've actually transacted using a specific payment method before, we kind of help them ease their decision making of transacting on BookMyShow by showing them those relevant options upfront at the right touch point.
Can you share an example of one of these offers and how you went about rolling it out?
So again, like let's say you are a repeat customer on BookMyShow and you've previously transacted using an SBI credit card, for example, right, which has a buy one get one offer. I know that as a user you actually value offers, one, and second, you have this card because you've actually redeemed this on our platform, right? I'm using the data which you've actually given us by being a logged in user and giving your consent to the data being used. And I just surface an SBI card offer right in your movie booking journey so that it helps you make the decision that this is where I can get a 100 rupee or a 500 rupee discount while I transact. And it helps both users as well as us to find more value from the existing ecosystem that we have.
So it is that when you find the nudge at the right point, that's the first thing you've done. The second is you leverage data to actually kind of show me the right offer that is relevant for me so that I do not drop off the buying funnel and then.
Yes, exactly.
Trisha, while we've just discussed social nudges, is there any other cool feature that you have implemented at Book My Show that you could share with us?
Another cool feature that we have recently implemented is something called hyper localization, wherein we show you relevant cinemas based on your location.
Can you help
Yeah.
explain the term hyperlocalization?
Sure. So hyperlocalization essentially means you are building a feature where you are localizing the right set of features or items based on the user's location, because that is what the user is looking for. So while you're building it for a global audience, you're actually localizing the experience for your local audience. No, essentially, which means that if a user has shared their location, they see relevant cinemas closer to them rather than cinemas scattered all across a region like Mumbai.
Okay, so can I say localization is something like I pick Mumbai and that would be localization, but in hyperlocalization, you actually check a radius of within 1 or 2 kilometer and then show me personalized offers.
Yes.
So what was that Book My Show actually?
Users give us their location access while they're using BookMyShow app. And again, we respect users' privacy, so we only look at data that users share. Based on that, we kind of personalize the cinemas that a user can see near them, which means that if you've given your location as point A, B, I show you cinemas sorted by distance so that you decide which ones to go to based on how close or far they are from your exact pinpointed location. Apart from location, we also look at other parameters while we are personalizing the right cinemas for you, which is whether you have visited that cinema in the past, what kind of cinemas do you generally go to? Do you generally go to a single screen cinema or do you go to a multiplex cinema? So all of those inputs are also factored in apart from the local distance based factor that we have brought into our algorithm.
Okay, and we've spoken about social nudges, we've spoken about hyperlocalization, we've spoken about personalizing offers. Now, how is it that you know that these strategies are actually working? Are there certain metrics that you track, and if you could share some of them?
So, like I mentioned, we do run controlled experiments, which are like A/B tests before we launch any feature. That's a must to do at BookMyShow as a product culture. It helps us understand exactly what value addition that feature is adding to. And like you rightly mentioned, we define success metrics for the feature. For example, in the case of hyperlocalization, our success metric will be the number of users transacting. Has that increased? Ideally, it should if we are making it more relevant to the user and helping them decide that they want to transact. That is how the whole experiment construct is set up and measured for success.
Something that was a unique phenomena, and I know some like different industries were impacted during COVID. The entertainment industry was definitely one of them. What were some of the unique challenges that you faced in driving user engagement and retention during that period?
So during COVID, the entire theaters had got shut and nobody was going out. So that was a low point in the history of Book My Show. But what we started focusing on were things that are under our control. So we built a new platform, which is a TVOD platform, which is a transactional video on demand. It's a streaming product where you pay per movie or per series that you kind of watch. And that was one innovative feature that we built in the face of this crisis. Having said that, a lot of user behaviors have changed post COVID. The kind of movies that were doing well at theaters pre COVID, a lot of users wait for those to get released on OTT without going to watch in theaters. So those are the kind of user behavior shifts that have happened, and we're trying to navigate these user behaviors by understanding how do a user decide and what can we do to help them come back to theaters and watch more movies.
I think the TWAT feature that you mentioned seems to be very interesting. I'll definitely explore it. there are already so many OTT platforms out there, and like, how do you actually deal with this kind of competition that you face?
OTT platforms, as a from a business model point of view, work on a subscription video on demand, which basically means you pay for a subscription and all of the content is free for you in that subscription. Our business model is very different from that. It's a transactional video on demand where you don't have to pay for the entire subscription, you pay per movie. So that is one. The second is the kind of content that we have versus what OTT platforms have is very different. So niche content like Korean, Swedish, Norwegian, these kind of movies are what people come to Book My Show to watch, because that's not something which is prevalent on the OTT platforms. It's mostly a mass audience movies that are there, tailored mostly for Indian audience or something from Hollywood that is there. But we have a niche content that we kind of play on, which is our USP for T-Word as a platform.
Oh wow. Okay. So I did not know that you can actually get. So the thing that you all have done is, yes, you all have actually tried to face the challenge, and while doing that, what you have ensured is find your own moat or your own
Yes.
niche, which you can see nobody else in the industry is doing. So I think that's definitely exciting. When you mentioned the wait and watch trend, I am definitely guilty. I actually wait now for the movie to come on to my favorite OTT channel, and then I watch it. Are there any specific initiatives that you've implemented to incentivize users to actually improve their attention or to get them to come back to the theater?
So again, what we've done is we have looked at what users do. So we have power users who transact more than 8 times in a year. And then we have non-power users across cohorts who only transact 2 times in a year, or 3 times a year. Now our objective is to get these users who are not power users, to enable them to become power users. And what we have learned from a lot of user research, market research, is pricing is one barrier that Indian consumers have in mind, right? Why do I pay for a 250 ticket if I can watch it on OTT after 8 weeks or 10 weeks? So what we've done is we've created something called a Filmy Pass. We have identified the right target audience for this. It's not rolled out to all Book My Show users. We run these initiatives by identifying the specific cohorts for whom it makes sense to provide these kind of features. Filmy Pass is essentially a 99 rupee pass that you can buy, and you get a 225 discount on your next three transactions, which means 75 discount on each of your next three transactions. So that has helped
Okay.
us improve user retention and get them back on our platform.
I think I'm a power user because I don't see filmy past on my book my show, but definitely an interesting feature. When I do work on in this space, and I feel like subscription products are pretty hard to crack. What has been your experience, and is it working well for you?
So I think again, as an Indian consumer, I don't think there's a challenge in selling subscription products. I think Indian consumers are very value for money consumers, right? Every time they see something, they kind of do the math. Is it making sense to me, right? If you look at other subscription products, it works just like that. If I'm putting in this much, how much I'm getting out, how much
I
time
should
does
get
it take for me to.
200% return back.
Right. So that is what users think. And that is how we have priced the subscription program and the benefits out of it. Like if you look at the 99 and the 75 numbers that we have come up with, those are backed by general data, revenues that we have, how much discount can we give. All of those inputs have been factored in. And we've seen a huge adoption for something like Filmy Pass, at least in the markets that we have rolled out currently.
So you would say that pricing becomes an important factor while
Yeah.
deciding your subscription pass. Would there be any other two factors that you think really matter when you actually design a product which is a subscription?
So apart from the pricing, the user experience have to be seamless. And when I say user experience, I mean the ability for users to discover the right subscription at the right touch point, for them to be able to understand why it is a value add for them, and for them to buy it in a seamless fashion without any friction, right? So I think one key element is the user experience that you can provide. And I think even if your pricing is right, your models are right, it wouldn't work if the user experience is not thought through. So that is one important factor. The other important factor, like I said, is to understand what motivates a user to buy that, right? And how can you position or launch your product in a manner that it reaches the right audience and helps them decide that they want to buy it, right? So product design and product launch, I would say these are the two essential factors apart from the price, which is the business part of product.
Twisha, I feel like you've like hit it right on the nail, because when I was working on a subscription product myself, I think one thing I personally struggled with was the messaging. I don't think I was able to do justice to the value that the consumer actually got out of the product. And you mentioned user quite a bit. I've had some guests share some very interesting ways in which they hear the voice of the customer. And this has become one of my favorite questions is what is the most unconventional way in which you have heard the voice of the customer?
Again, like I said, there are multiple processes that you can set up to understand what users are going through, like user interviews, user surveys. We do dog fooding exercises quite extensively in BookMyShow, which means that we use our own products to figure out what is broken, what is to be fixed. We also do voice of customers, where every month we look at customer support requests that were raised and try to figure out what exactly are users talking about. Market research is also something that we do, right, quite extensively every quarter or every 6 months. So all of that provides data inputs. I think for me, the most unconventional way to get user insights is to just pick up the phone and call folks. I think we undermine how helpful people want to be, and there's a barrier which a lot of product managers or founders have it within themselves. Ki, how do I call a user and ask? No, you just call them. People are more than willing to share their inputs to help you improve your product or build the right product.
I've also was reading that you advise and work with startups, right, in their ideation stage to help them find the right product market fit, evolve their business model, or even formulate a solid product strategy. So, first of all, Twisha, what is your motivation behind working with some of these startups?
I think the value of a mentor is very crucial, especially when you're founders. There are multiple voices, there are multiple people telling you what to do, what not to do. There's no right or wrong. You only figure that out later after 3 years or 4 years, whether the strategy that you took was the right one or not, right? And you've competing priorities from users, investors, other stakeholders, right? So I have been in that position and I want to help startups as much as I can based on whatever expertise I can bring in so that they are in the right mental space to make the right decisions and they have a person who can help them make decisions. So that's what motivates me.
So, can you share what are the common mistakes that startup make while trying to work on their business model or their product strategy?
Especially first time founders, and I did the same mistake, was focus a lot on building the right product. I think they kind of don't give that much emphasis on distribution or acquisition or how will you increasing the reach of their product. It's not like you have to build your product and then you have to start thinking of how will you distribute your product, right? Most of the audience is not already created for that product, so you need to create an audience. I think if you start early, it helps you get a kickstart when you launch. I think that's one mistake most founders.
If I want to start a startup, can you give me an example of how you've kind of helped them find the right customers and how did you overcome this challenge? Can you just share without taking names of any of the startups? How did you go about the whole?
One thing is, once you've decided what to build, right? Most founders have kind of identified some user problems, right? And they've decided what to build, which is, in my opinion, the easier part. The tougher part is to kind of validate one, how big the market is. Because if you've interviewed or surveyed 100 people, how are you sure that 100 people are actually translating to 100 million users who actually have this problem? So that is one. And second, like I mentioned about distribution, let's say you decided that you want to build a product A and this is the target audience. Can you find out websites or influencers or blogs which are already catering to this audience, and can you get yourself tap on the existing audience user base that they already have? If let's say you target 10 bloggers who have like 100k traffic on their website, and if you just do a partnership with them, you are easily getting that 10k audience on your website on day zero, right? That's what you want, and that's what helps you decide what to build next or what is working or what is not working. Because building the first version is easy, but getting feedback and iterating on that is generally the challenging part, because it's also friction. Like founders are very attached to their product, they're like their babies. Like
Babies.
somebody,
Yeah.
yes, if somebody comes and tells you this won't work, it's difficult to absorb that, right? So you should be with an open mindset and you get traffic and see what's working or not working for yourself, and you iterate faster.
In a lot of cases, whether someone's starting their career or a startup, we don't necessarily have big teams where you can like have build like massive product roadmaps and everything. So in this case, one is also please talk us through how do you build your product roadmap. roadmap? I'll first do that. And then can we also share, if you have limited resources, what is the most optimal way to work on your roadmap? And
like in general, all companies have limited resources, so it's not like a unicorn company would have unlimited resources, right? So that's a
right.
caveat which applies to all companies of all sizes. Maybe the resources that you have varies from place to place, but trust me, even a Book My Show has so many features that we want to build, but we only have limited resources, right? So ruthless prioritization is what you need to do as a PM. That's an essential skill. So coming back to Book My Show, I think we have fairly standardized processes. We create an annual plan, an annual roadmap. We also create quarterly roadmaps, basically what exactly we want to build, and then print at a weekly level where we kind of detailed out the exact specs of what gets built, how it gets built, and for whom it gets built, right? So we have this annual, quarterly, and weekly roadmaps. We write those FAQ PRDs, which I think everybody knows, which is product requirement documents, which is what engineering and other teams use to kind of execute the roadmap, basically.
How do you do ruthless prioritization?
So again, like I said, we have frameworks that we use, like RICE framework, or we have something internally that we call an ALICE framework, which helps us decide what to build, why to build, and kind of justify the impact that it's going to bring in.
It's called Alice.
Yeah, so it's basically alignment, impact, confidence, and effort, which we use to kind of prioritize.
So you all have
Because
coined your own framework.
yeah, we have.
That's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to do this particular podcast. Was what I've realized is, yes, we say rise and there is so many Kano and all the other frameworks, but at the end of the day, when we're in our day-to-day work, every company and every team and every product manager, I've realized, has a different style and a different methodology that they use. And I like the term Alice. I don't know if it's inspired by Alice in the Wonderland, but very cool. Thank you for sharing this with us.
And this is an advice that I had got when I also started up, from a lot of successful founders and large scale investors who told me, until you achieve a product market fit, don't scale, because there's no point scaling a startup if you haven't found your product market fit, right? And it's easy to get a product market fit with a team of 10 as well. Like if you looked at WhatsApp and a lot of other companies, they were not like a huge team, just that they decided to build just one product, right? I think that is what startups need to do: decide that one thing that they want to build and build it right. It doesn't need a huge team to build one product to get product market fit.
I've just loved this conversation, Twisha, and I feel like I'm going to get you back and we're going to discuss more interesting things. What I want to do now with you is a quick rapid fire and have some fun. I'm going to ask you a few questions and you just have to respond in one word or few words at the most. So I'm going to get started. What is your go to source for tech trends impacting product development?
So I read a lot of blogs, Techstars, all of these blogs I kind of read very extensively.
Okay, so you love blogs. What motivates you to create content about product management, leadership, and business models? I know you have your own blog also.
So again, one is it helps me learn. While you write, your concepts get stronger. That is the sole reason. And second, it helps other folks who might be in a similar journey that I was few years back. So if I can help them out.
Great. What is your top tip for boosting user engagement on platforms?
I think my top tip is to identify the right actions. I think user engagement is a word which is used very loosely. So you need to identify what user engagement means in the context of your organization and drive users to do that action.
What is the essential metric to track user retention?
So again, it might depend from company to company. Frequency could be one measure, which is how frequently users use your product, or intensity in the sense that while they're using a product in one session, how much do they use? Like instead of 5 sessions on YouTube, do you do 2 sessions which are 30 minutes versus 5 sessions which are 5 minutes? So frequency and intensity is what I would break down into, but there are further sub metrics to kind of break it further.
And one innovation that you're most excited about in the entertainment?
A lot of innovation might come in the virtual reality space, where you don't need to actually go to a theater to watch a cinema. You might just experience that at home. I don't know when that's going to be possible, but I don't think that's far.
That's fantastic, Twisha. I've loved this chat and thank you so much for coming on behind the feature. And I can't wait to see what is the next impactful product. And then we're going to get you back on and we
Sure, it was great having you, Diksha. Great speaking with you.